Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome. As is custom, we begin our proceedings with the lighting of the traditional oil lamp. So this may be a moment to be poised and take your places and be comfortably seated as we begin. To feature in the lighting of the traditional oil lamp, we'd like to invite our distinguished guests and office bearers. So we begin with Mr. Supun Veerasinghe, the Director, Group Chief Executive Officer of Dialogue Asiata PLC, in the company of Professor Lakshman R. Vatawala, the Founder President of CMA Sri Lanka, Mr. H.M. Hennayaka Bandara, the Vice President of CMA Sri Lanka, Mr. Ruchira Pereira, Council Member, and CMA we also Sri Lanka, like to invite for the Mr. P. Gajendra, also Council the Chairman Member, of the and Council Dr. Members Mr. Asanga Vimalaratnan, Mr. Manil Jayasinghe, Senior Professor Kennedy Gunawardena, Ms. Surekha Katavala, Muhammad Intikhab bin Ali, who is CEO of CMA Sri Lanka, Mr. Kosala Disanayaka, Consultant to CMA Sri Lanka, Mr. L.B. Vattagadara, Consultant to CMA Sri Lanka, Mr. Priyantha Punchiheva, the first student to qualify at the CMA exams, Mr. Gamini Vimala Surya, Founder Member, and Ms. Shanti Maheswaran, Director of CMA Sri Lanka, representing the staff at the senior level. With the lamp illumined and ceremony given its due, we invite those who partook to resume their places, but not yet to be seated, because to accord due respect to the nation in which this event is hosted and the host organization, this will be followed by the national anthem of Sri Lanka and the CMA anthem.
Sri Lanka Mata, Appa Sri Lanka, Namo, 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 Namo Mata. Sundara Siri Varini, Surandi Ati Shobha Mala तेरी मैं नवदार्शनिक धनुमिन तेरे पुण्य दिनमिन जय कनुव करा प्रिय नगन सदा कलमना करण गणकाधिकारी विश्व निकेतनयी CMA ஸ்ரீலங்காவில் முதலிடம் பெறுதே அதிதொழில்நுட்பங்கள் கிடைக்கும் உலகத்தை வெற்றி பாதையில் தினமும் செய்வோம் முகமையாளர்களும் கணக்காளர்களும் உருவாகும் மத்தியஸ்தரம்
CMA, the best in Sri Lanka, adopting international standards, the technological advancement, the management accounting profession globally. Recognize is full of excellence on the path to victory.
Tira sarvatinakam Deepanaya karamin Tira sarvatinakam Deepanaya karamin Shaktiyin purin adana Prakati malaya hitarna Vishwaya obinadilu Purarasiyan bihi karna Kalamana karan kanakadhikari Vishwa niketanayi Kalamana karan kanakadhikari Vishwa niketanayi CMA
The Society of Certified Management Accountants of Sri Lanka, CMA, was set up in 1999 with the technical assistance of CMA Canada, now CPA Canada, and was based on the guidelines of the international accounting bodies, the International Federation of Accountants, IFAC, which is the world body for accountants and the management accounting bodies of the UK, USA, and the South Asian region. The Society of Certified Management Accountants of Sri Lanka was launched on the 3rd of June 2000, on which date the institute celebrates its Founders' Day. The first patron members of CMA Sri Lanka. There were 8 council members in the first governing council of the Institute of Certified Management Accountants of Sri Lanka. Founder members are those who received membership at the launch of CMA. The first CMA graduation was held in 2003. There were 8 advisory council members in the first advisory council of CMA. The Honorable Minister of Trade, Commerce, Consumer Affairs and Marketing Development, Honorable Dr. Banthura Gunawardena, tabled the bill for the incorporation of CMA Sri Lanka in the Parliament on the 18th of March 2009. The bill was approved by the Parliament, and this created history in the accounting world, where Sri Lanka, after 50 years after the incorporation of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, a new professional management accounting body was incorporated and given government recognition. CMA was incorporated by Act of Parliament number 23 of 2009 as the National Professional Management Accounting Institution in Sri Lanka. CMA became a member of SAFA, the South Asian Federation of Accountants, and now serves on governing body of SAFA since January 2010 and joins the fraternity of professional accounting bodies in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and Nepal. As a Sri Lankan professional body, CMA has now attained global recognition, providing a qualification recognized both locally and internationally. CMA received associate membership of the International Federation of Accountants (IFAC) in 2010 and was elevated to full membership on the 7th of November 2014. IFAC is the global organization for the accountancy profession dedicated to serving the public interest by strengthening the profession and contributing to the development of strong international economies. IFAC is comprised of 180 members and associates in 135 countries and jurisdictions, representing over 3 million accountants in public practice, education, government service, industry and commerce. CMA is also a member of the Confederation of Asian and Pacific Accountants, CAPA, the professional accounting organization for the Asian and Pacific region. The CMA National Management Accounting Conference, conducted annually, is the key event in the CMA annual calendar. It was inaugurated in the year 2002 and has been continuing for 20 years. Each conference is inspired by a relevant and innovative theme. The sessions address topics that are aligned with the theme and are of practical relevance. In 2015 July, Ms. Olivia Kirtley, former president of the International Federation of Accountants, visited CMA Sri Lanka's head office. CMA organized the first CMA Excellence in Integrated Reporting Awards in 2015. The purpose of the Excellence in IR Awards was to promote Sri Lankan companies, especially those listed, state institutions and unlisted companies, to undertake integrated reporting, which will be of immense benefit to investors and stakeholders. The awards were presented by the chief guest, His Excellency Maitripada Sirisena, former president of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka, Ms. Olivia Kirtley, former president of the International Federation of Accountants, Her Excellency Shirley Witting, former High Commissioner for Canada in Sri Lanka, and the president of the CMA Sri Lanka, Professor Lakshman R. Vatavala. As per the cabinet approval in 2014, in the year 2016, government granted 25 million rupees through the Ministry of Trade as part of funding for the purchase of an office building at Visakha Private Road. CMA is governed by a governing council of 8 members comprising an eminent panel of academics and professionals in Sri Lanka. Professor Lakshman R. Vatavala, who is celebrated icon in the field of accounting, is the founder president and continues to serve CMA as its president. Professor Vatavala is the past president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, past president of the South Asian Federation of Accountants, founder president of AAT Sri Lanka, and former chairman of the People's Bank, and was on the board of Investment of Sri Lanka BOI. Professor Lakshman R. Vatavala received the national honours Sri Lanka Sikhamani, conferred for distinguished services of a general nature by the President of Sri Lanka on the 19th of August 2019. In 2018, he was awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award by CMA Sri Lanka for the recognition of outstanding leadership and contribution to the accountancy profession. And in 2020, the Faculty of Business and Law, Deakin University, Melbourne, Australia, appointed Professor Vatavala as the adjunct professor. Recently, Professor Vatavala received the Apex Award from Honorable Ranil Wickramasinghe, the President of Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka. CMA has signed MOUs with all state universities and other professional bodies to provide an opportunity for undergraduates and other professional students to obtain CMA professional qualification. In the year 2018, CMA signed a member pathway agreement with CPA Australia at the World Congress of Accountants, Sydney, Australia. CMA has signed training partner agreements with more than 100 companies. They provide practical training to CMA students according to the guidelines provided by CMA. The practical experience that they can obtain whilst studying or after completing the exam has given them much flexibility to obtain a professional qualification in management accounting. CMA has launched a special program, Certified Hospitality Finance and Management Accountant CHFMA. The specialized professional qualification in hospitality finance and management accounting, which is jointly offered by CMA and Sri Lanka Institute of Tourism and Hospitality Management. In 2017, CMA commenced the first batch of certified hospitality finance management accounting classes at Sri Lanka Hotel School premises. CMA Sri Lanka launched the Cost and Management Accounting Standard Board in the year 2019. With the incorporation of the CMA Sri Lanka, CMA has the responsibility of the issue of management accounting standards as per its objectives of implementing and enforce cost and management accounting standards, records and measurement both in the government, public and private sector institutions. Every year, CMA provides scholarships to deserving students covering all segments of Sri Lankan society in commemoration of its Founders' Day. In 2014, CMA received cabinet approval for the recognition of CMA qualification on par with other professional accounting bodies operating in Sri Lanka. CMA was the first Sri Lankan professional accounting body to commence computer-based testing in association with Pearson VUE USA in April 2018 for its foundation level. The revision of the syllabus has taken into account the need for good communication and leadership qualities provided by the Speechcraft program conducted by the Toastmasters. Former President of the International Federation of Accountants, Ms. Rachel Grimes, visited Sri Lanka in July 2018 as a chief guest for CMA Global Management Conference, and it further strengthened the accounting profession in Sri Lanka. CMA held its 15th graduation ceremony under the distinguished patronage of Australian High Commissioner in Sri Lanka, His Excellency Bryce Hutchison, in December 2018 at Kingsbury Balmoral Ballroom. CMA hosted the CMA National Management Accounting Conference 2019 and Commonwealth Accountants Conference on Sustainable Development Goals Agenda 2030, the role of professional accountants, and the Integrated Reporting Awards 2019 to recognize and honor Sri Lankan companies including the public quoted companies, private and state-owned enterprises, small and medium enterprises. Institute of Certified Management Accountants of Sri Lanka, CMA Sri Lanka, celebrated its 20th anniversary and conducted its 16th graduation ceremony in December 2019 at the Lotus Hall, BMICH, Colombo, under the distinguished patronage of the Canadian High Commissioner in Sri Lanka, His Excellency David Mackinnon. In January 2020, Dr. Inky Ju, President of the International Federation of Accountants, visited Sri Lanka to deliver the keynote address at the event on financial and cost and management accounting for the development of SMEs, which was organized by CMA Sri Lanka. During the last few years, 3 IFAC presidents have visited Sri Lanka, bringing credit to the accounting profession in Sri Lanka. The Institute of Certified Management Accountants of Sri Lanka, cost management and cost control would be 2 areas in which CMA will be closely associated to bring about efficiency and productivity, prevent wastage and promote value creation.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, thank you for taking the time to be present today at this significant event on the calendar of CMA Sri Lanka, the Founders' Day Oration for the year 2023. We have just been able to witness and appreciate what has gone before in the video we just viewed, which was a rather quick run-through of the past 2 decades. But we are here today to celebrate and the enterprise and foresight that brought CMA Sri Lanka into being, and those who have invested their time, expertise, and effort into the building of an institution that has contributed greatly to the pool of talent in Sri Lanka, not least of whom was the founder. Professor Vatavala's drive and passion to establish a center of education that would enrich our nation by providing the skills necessary to manage resources effectively is no secret to anyone here. However, it is in harnessing the right support from those who have been significant contributors in their own right that CMA has grown to its present stature. Those of you here today are a valued part of the legacy that CMA Sri Lanka has built and is building, and you are appreciated. Taking the lectern now for some words of welcome is one who has been an integral part of that journey for CMA. He is a founder, fellow member of CMA Sri Lanka, and a fellow member of CA Sri Lanka. He is the immediate past president of the South Asian Federation of Accountants and former CEO of National Savings Bank, as well as being past president for AAT Sri Lanka and the past president of the Association of Professional Bankers. He welcomes you now in his capacity as the vice president of CMA Sri Lanka, Mr. Hennayaka Bandara.
Good evening to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. business or otherwise, an anniversary is always a milestone to celebrate the achievements. But in today's context, it is an opportunity to set new goals in the challenging economic and business environment where the role of management accountants has increased significantly in recent years. Founders Day orator, Mr. Supun Veerasinghe, President, Professor Lakshman Vatawala, members of the Council, distinguished invitees, members of the Institute, Chief Executive Officer and the staff of CMA, ladies and gentlemen. The history of CMA Sri Lanka is important to all of us. I reminisce fondly the pioneering efforts of Professor Lakshman Vatawala, a visionary leader in setting up the Society of Certified Management Accountants in 1999 and launched on 3rd June 2000. Was an important landmark symbolizing a beginning of a new era for the accountancy profession in Sri Lanka. This status was further strengthened with the incorporation of CMA by an Act of Parliament in 2009 as the Institute of Certified Management Accountants of Sri Lanka. It is with great delight I, as a founder member of the Institute, witnessed the steady growth and many achievements of CMA with local, regional, and global recognition by reputed universities, professional organizations, and becoming a full member of the International Federation of Accountants, Confederation of Asian and Pacific Accountants, and South Asian Federation of Accountants, to par with any global recognized professional institute. CMA, as a globally recognized professional body, is proactive in their approach and consistently focuses on providing current and relevant content to their students to help them be knowledgeable and skilled in competitive job market. At the same time, input obtained from professional bodies and corporates has helped the qualification to be structured in line with market requirements. All these achievements were possible mainly because of the invaluable commitment and contribution made by past and present council members, founder members, members of the staff, education providers, and all other stakeholders during the last 23 years. More importantly, the confidence placed by the students and the members of the institute. We deeply appreciate their valuable contribution. With those remarks, on behalf of the President and the Governing Council of CMA, I am pleased to welcome Mr. Supun Veerasinghe, Director, Chief Executive Officer of Dialogue Asiata, PLC, for readily accepting our invitation to deliver Founders Day Oration on the subject of strategic management in turbulent times. Your participation is a source of encouragement to our institute and look forward to working closely with you in the future as well. Let me also welcome past and present council members, founder members, all distinguished invitees. It is very difficult to me to read out all the names. I have met so many distinguished invitees, so please bear with me. Members of the Institute, Chief Executive Officer and the staff of CMA, we greatly appreciate your presence here today at this event. We look forward to your continued support in your future events as well. I wish the Founders' Day celebration all success. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bandara, for setting the tone and giving us context as well as those words of welcome. It is time now for the Founders' Day oration, and as you have heard, it is on the topic or the subject of strategic management in turbulent times. Our orator was appointed Group Chief Executive and member of the Board of Dialogue Asiata in 2017, and he commenced his career in telecommunications at Dialogue Asiata in 1999, having held multiple roles since then, such as Head of Strategy and CEO of the mobile business, before being appointed Group Chief Operating Officer of Dialogue Asiata in 2010. Subsequently, too, he was seconded to international units and he served the group there. Mr. Veerasinghe now serves on several boards of subsidiary and associate companies of Dialogue, as well as UNGC network in Sri Lanka. He's a fellow member of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants UK and holds a Bachelor of Science in Accountancy and Financial Management from the University of Sri Jayewardenepura, Sri Lanka. Mr. Veerasinghe also holds an MBA from the University of Western Sydney, Australia, and is an alumnus of the Harvard Business School. So we welcome him now as he takes the lectern for the Founders' Day oration. Mr. Supun Veerasinghe.
Ayubowan and good evening. Professor Watawala, President of CMA Institute, Mr. Henanayak Bandara, Vice President, Governing Council members, distinguished CMA members, my dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed a great honor and a privilege to stand before you this August gathering to share my perspectives on how to navigate an organization through very turbulent times. I think the principle of turbulence is something which is very familiar to all of us nowadays, but was quite unique in a setting if you look back 30, 40 years ago. So I'll first touch on the principle of strategic management, then on turbulence. Then I will try to discuss on what are the key principles that we need to look at in navigating through this challenging environment. The first principle of strategic management. What is strategic management? Strategic management is all about setting direction for the organization, building competitive advantage for the organization, and making sure that the organization is guided towards achieving its goals and objectives. It is normally a 3 to 5 year journey, and it is long-term in nature. It differs from operations management, which is about day-to-day management of operations of the organization. However, strategic management is very closely intertwined with operations management. Strategic management cannot exist without looking at operations management. So it is always important to know the linkage between the two. While strategic management sets the long-term vision and the direction, operations management converts it to the framework through which that you deliver the goals and objectives. If not for operations management, strategic management will not deliver its desired outcomes. So strategic management sets the framework and operations would execute it and deliver the outcomes. So the concept of turbulence cannot be discussed without looking at operations management and its implications on strategic management. Then the principle of turbulence. I was once in Bangladesh between 2014 to 16. I used to say never a dull day in Dhaka, because Dhaka was always full of action. Something or the other happens. But when I came back to Sri Lanka, to Colombo in 2017, and thereafter I now also reflect and see that never a dull day in Colombo. Because that's the kind of turbulence that we as a country has been going through. The turbulence is well described through the word VUCA, the volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environment that we live in. What does volatility mean? Volatility is about the speed at which change is taking place. The only thing that is constant in our life is change. Only thing that is constant in our life is change. And in a volatile environment, the speed of change is accelerating. And the pace at which the change is taking place is very rapid. This change can happen because of technology evolution. This change can happen due to macro environment reasons. The change can happen due to political reasons as well as social reasons. The first part, especially between 2010 to 2018-20, was driven largely by technological changes. The internet revolution created new companies and also resulted in companies that going bust. Through the COVID pandemic, again, we see a lot of new opportunities coming up and a lot of organizations becoming uncompetitive. So this change is driven by multiple reasons, but especially we are in the fourth industrial revolution. The industrial revolution which is driven by artificial intelligence, 5G, and power of cloud computing, all coming together to make a significant change in our lives and industries. So the volatility is about the pace at which change is taking place and it is accelerating. And what is uncertainty? What's a simple word for uncertainty? How do we use the word uncertainty very frequently, but uncertainty, simply put, is the unpredictability. The past is not a good predictor of the future. The past is not a good predictor of the future. If it's a certain environment, if the weather is certain, we can say May to August, we have the monsoon. But with the environmental changes, we can't even say that weather is certain, because the past is not a predictor of the future. A simple explanation of uncertainty. Then what's about complexity? Complexity is about the pest factors, political, social, economic, and technology factors, again, creating that ambiguity. The changes in those factors would make it hard to plan, hard to predict the changes that are taking place in our environment. So volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and then we have ambiguity. Ambiguity is nothing but the inability to see the future. Ambiguity is nothing but the inability to predict the future. So when all these come together, we have a turbulent environment. So how do we plan, how do we manage an organization and guide the organization to the future? Future meaning 3 to 5 years in such a challenging, turbulent environment. That's the challenge that as leaders we have, as management accountants that we have before us. And this challenge is becoming increasingly difficult, and it's not becoming easy at all. Pre-COVID, it was largely driven by technology. But we all saw how one pandemic can change the entire world, and then today we are dealing with the repercussions of that pandemic, even today. The economic crisis that we are seeing in Sri Lanka, as well as all the changes that we are seeing in the rest of the world, is due to that one incident. So this change and the volatility, the turbulence that we are seeing is something that we have to deal day in, day out. And it's not something that we can run away from. I represent the largest telecommunications company in Sri Lanka, Dialog. I'll also reflect on and bring in some examples of our journey over the last 30 years in Sri Lanka. We always believed that uncertainty is an opportunity. We always believe uncertainty is an opportunity. Because uncertainty makes the playing field uneven. Uncertainty makes the playing field uneven. If everyone sees clarity in the environment, then the game becomes difficult, game becomes harder. But if you have to navigate through an uncertain environment, and if you have clarity in your mind on what you are going to do, then it's easier to beat your competition. So we approached uncertainty as an opportunity. When we started our operations in 1995, and since then progressing to where we are today, we went through a massive period of massive civil war, investors running away from the country, then the resulting challenges. But we looked always at uncertainty as an opportunity. Because in our industry, we have to look at a horizon minimum of 10 years, sometimes 15 years, some investments 25 years. We cannot invest or we cannot operate our businesses looking at a 12-month horizon or a 24-month horizon. But how do we take those challenging decisions in a very uncertain, turbulent environment that we had in our country? As leaders, it is always important to have a good grip, good control of your organization. If you imagine yourself as a pilot navigating an aircraft, pilots always go through turbulence. And that turbulence might last for a few minutes, or half an hour, or throughout the journey. And you need to imagine that you are that pilot who is navigating, but not few minutes, but it could be few years that you have to navigate through. You need to always look at delivering success and how do you create winners out of that entire journey. Because based on the approach that you have taken, the success can be very different. In the US, the organizations who have successfully navigated through turbulence has generated on average 14% more returns compared to those who just stayed with the status quo, generating 0% return as per S&P index. You can always separate yourself. If you look at Dialog, we started as the fourth operator. We had at that time multinationals like Millicom, Telstra, Singtel in the country, global players. But we managed to stay focused on our objective, and we were able to create our own path and get to that leadership while the others were exiting the country. Because we believed in our consumer, we believed in our strategy. So there can be a significant difference in terms of the outcomes that you deliver if you manage turbulence and if you deliver on your plans. However, the external dimension is very crucial. The external dimension will be changing and you need to always keep a close eye on how that is going to affect your plans. That is not going to remain constant, and your plan cannot remain constant as a result as well. If you think that you have a solid plan and no matter what I am going to execute that, then you will fail. You need to always keep that open mind and be vigilant on the external environment. And some of these changes you need to anticipate early. So how do you navigate, especially in a challenging environment and when the turbulence is constantly taking place? The turbulence that we have seen in our country is constant. Pre-2009, it was the war. Then we had economic crisis, COVID, economic crisis. This is something that is taking place constantly. But our organizations will also have cycles. Our industries will have cycles. There will be cycles where you do well. There will be cycles where the industry starts stagnating or the growth starts slowing down. It is always important to take advantage of the good periods that you have in your industry and the organization to make those hard decisions. You have to make those hard decisions early. And you have to make those hard decisions in good times. Because it's a lot more easier to make those hard decisions in good times than in difficult times. But again, turbulence is not going to go away. It's a relative thing. In that relative thing, your organization's context needs to be looked at and be proactive in taking those hard decisions, so that it's much easier to navigate through difficult times. The other most important aspect is making sure your finances are kept in order. I think if we reflect as a country, when COVID hit, we had a very difficult balance sheet. And that put a lot of strain on our economy. Again, for organizations, while we always look at the P&L, it is always important to keep a track of your balance sheet. Balance sheet gives you the strength to compete, make opportunistic investments, make opportunistic M&A viable. We always look at that P&L, we look at the bottom line, we look at the margins, but seldom look at your working capital, your collection period. How do you optimize your asset base? How do you generate more cash from your assets? How do you sweat your assets better? That's a very, very important aspect, and very rarely overlooked, or very rarely not considered. So balance sheet management is very important. Again, a simple example from our journey. We have large investments in capital equipment. We invest about $150 million a year. Some years it's about $200 million. So to fund these investments, we borrow in US dollars for two reasons. One is that we need US dollars to spend, and the other thing is that we don't have a tax shield. What's a tax shield? We pay tax on our top line. We pay tax on our revenues, not on bottom line, because we have certain benefits by being a flagship BOI company until 2026. So it's always, from an economic sense, advantageous to have more dollar debt. So we had a larger exposure to dollar debt when the current crisis hit us. Investors were always saying, you need to let go of your dollars and reduce your dollar exposure. And we were on that path of reducing from $180 million exposure. We have brought it down to $90 million when the currency crisis happened. But that $90 million was enough to end up with a $30 billion loss last year. $90 million exposure was enough because of the currency devaluation. So had we pushed ourselves harder, had we made an effort to settle those debt earlier, we would have mitigated that loss. So those hard calls, hard actions, sometimes we don't take on ourselves early on. And that balance sheet management is very important in that context. Luckily, we had very little debt, overall debt. Our debt to EBITDA was about less than 1. Even now, our net debt to EBITDA is 1.2. So as a result, the balance sheet was still strong, but it had a massive impact on our P&L. Just to explain why you need to keep a close eye on your balance sheet. Then you need to not go into a shell. Turbulent times doesn't mean that you go into a shell and stop all your investments. It gives you an opportunity to selectively invest and create that differentiation. But it has to be selective investments. If you look back at the story of Samsung, Samsung had good smartphones. They exited from smartphones around 2006-07. Then again after 2009, we saw Nokia exiting the market, Android coming into the market, and Samsung took a strategic call to double down on smartphone technology with Android. Today they are the market leader for smartphones. It was a very selective, focused investment which they were able to execute successfully. During a turbulent time, 2009-10, again there was a massive crisis in the world. So it doesn't mean that you run away from investments or you go into a shell. These times gives you the best opportunity to invest. Then the fourth one is making selective M&A, look at selectively at M&A targets and then go after them. Because during turbulent times, you have that buyer's market. It gives you, there will be a lot of depressed assets. And if you have a strong balance sheet, you can always go for that. I remember in 2009, at Dialog also we went through a massive challenge. But come 2012, we went ahead and acquired Suntel. Because earlier we were predominantly a mobile operator. But Suntel acquisition gave us the opportunity for us to play in the fixed space, be that larger telecommunications provider having access to all services. Because we believe that pure mobile only is not going to be relevant to the customer in the long run. We saw that in 2006-07. That's why we went into TV and also acquiring Suntel. It was a very selective M&A, but it gave us that platform to go beyond mobile. And when you look back 10 years later, the pure mobile operators are finding it really hard to succeed. So it is important to make those strategic investments, strategic M&A, but not just go into a shell thinking that it's turbulent times, I can't see the future, the rapid change is making it impossible to plan, and put all your money in a safe and not take those hard calls. Because it gives you that opportunity. You have to be bold. Again, I go back, uncertainty is an opportunity. If you can see the path clearer than others, you can create that journey for yourself. Then I'll touch on few principles. So apart from these 4 areas, making sure that you make those hard calls is important. Then having a strong balance sheet, selective investments, selective M&A. Those are 4 ground rules that you should always keep in mind. Then I'll touch on few principles that are very useful when you go through this journey of managing strategic management in turbulent times. The first one is about your attitude. Your attitude as leaders, and that will set the attitude for the organization as well. The attitude of are you playing to win, or the attitude of are you playing not to lose. There's a massive difference between the two. Playing not to lose is you're playing very safe. You're not taking big bets. You're not challenging the status quo. Don't rock the boat. Because we are in difficult times, the water is very difficult, so you can't rock the boat. That is that play not to lose attitude. play to win attitude is taking those challenges. As human beings, we are always driven by that play not to lose attitude. Why is that? Because the pain from losing, the pain that you get when you lose something, it could be failing exam or it could be not achieving your target. The pain that comes to yourself is much greater than the joy that you get from winning. The pain of losing is much greater than the joy of losing, the joy of winning. So as humans, we are naturally inclined towards play not to lose as humans. So we need to always remind ourselves, am I playing not to lose or am I playing to win? Ask ourselves that question. And that will set the direction, that will set the attitude for the rest of the organization. Then you need to anticipate. You need to anticipate and see these trends early. You need to be proactive. If you don't anticipate, I think we didn't anticipate enough the economic crisis or the crash of the currency last year. Or are we in denial? We think that it is going to crash, but it's not going to depreciate by 80%. We might think it will depreciate by 20%, 30% max. So you need to plan for those scenarios. You can't just do a best case, base case, and a worst case. That's just incremental planning. But you need to look at those extreme situations that can happen and ask the question, are we ready? And if this happens, how are we going to handle the situation? Last year, or December 2021, we saw the potential power outage in 2022. We built fuel storages close to about 5 million liters of fuel can be stored in our network to support our network. Because when there are 10-hour power cuts, if you don't have fuel to operate our generators, then the entire country's connectivity can go down. So we built enough storages to make sure that we can store fuel and to support the network. But we didn't do enough in terms of paring down our dollar debt. So it's very important to anticipate these trends. It is very important to adjust your plans accordingly. Then the third aspect is about agility or strategic flexibility. You cannot have rigid plans. You have to always course correct. One is that you need to, every quarter, every year, you need to reflect and see, are we achieving our targets? But also need to reflect and see, is this helping towards achieve my larger purpose and vision? If not, you have to pivot. If you don't pivot again, you will become irrelevant because the environment is changing rapidly. So that strategic agility is very important and day-to-day agility is very important. We went to e-commerce, we launched in 2012. E-commerce was a big thing. We acquired at that time anything.lk and we went to e-commerce, thinking that we can win in that space as well. But we tried doing that. 2016, we realized that this is not our cup of tea. We don't have enough money to burn and run e-commerce. And in 2017, we exited that. We gave that company free of charge to our competitor and said, please run it, we don't know to run. You have to have that humility to accept that when you fail as well. Because you are not going to be successful in everything that you do. However, when we did the pay television business, in contrast, again, something that we felt that we were losing money and we couldn't get a grip of. But then we saw the opportunity in terms of retaining customers and building that larger connection. So the closer adjacency we retain, the further adjacency, which is e-commerce, we let go. And you have to have that agility, and as an organization and as a leadership, it is important to take those hard decisions. The other example on the agility is from the world of Disney. If you have, you see Disney all over. Disney is initially more popular for movies. Then Disney was popular for Disneyland, the theme parks. But then the current CEO who was before, he decided we are going to go into streaming because consumer, we need to keep the customer with us, and the consumer is more and more going into these devices, and they are not going to watch movies in large screens or in theaters. So they went and invested about 1.5 billion and acquired a streaming platform. And everyone thought that Disney was crazy, paying so much for a streaming platform. This was in 2013. And about 2 years later, they went and acquired 21st Century Fox for about 70 billion. That gave us the library, the content offering that was needed to run on that streaming platform. Today, they are giving a good run to Netflix and all the streaming platforms and strengthening that relationship with the customer, the consumer. Disney could have always said, streaming is not my game, content is only creating movies, or it's only ESPN is my game. No. They built on those, took those big bets in difficult times, create that connection to the customer. That is strategic agility. Then the fourth aspect is about action. The fourth principle is about action, the bias for action, sense of urgency. In most situations, we know the ground underneath our feet is moving, and we still think that tomorrow is going to be a better day. All these problems will go away tomorrow, next month, next quarter. It is not going to happen like that. It is very important to act with sense of urgency. The bias for action is very important, a key determinant of your success in a turbulent time. Especially in this part of the world, we are very optimistic. In this part of the world, we are very optimistic. But while being optimistic, it is also important to have that sense of urgency and bias for action. If not, you will not realize the opportunity that comes before you, as well as you will not avoid the risk that will come and damage your business. The other aspect, or the sixth aspect, is about alliances. Most of these turbulent times will put a lot of pressure on your business, and everything cannot be done by yourself. All these plans or execution can get mitigated, or the exposure on your investments, the risk can be mitigated if you work through alliances, partnerships, rather than trying to do everything on your own. So collaboration becomes key. In 2012, we realized that we have one significant gap because we were dependent, or we didn't have access to international connectivity. Though we produce a lot of internet traffic in the country, everything had to go out on our competitor network. We saw that as a massive weakness and massive bottleneck for our success. But these investments tend to be around $40–50 million. The returns are very long term. So at that time, we partnered with multiple operators, a consortium of operators including Vodafone, Telecom Malaysia, Etisalat, to create our first submarine cable platform. That cannot be done on our own. So that is where alliances, partnerships come into play. And the alliance partnerships will help to mitigate your risk while you might have to share your success. in a turbulent time, it also helps to mitigate your risk. Last year, when we had again challenges for capital, pressure on capital, we went and partnered our biggest competitor and said, you build fiber for us. For the next 10 years, please build fiber, we will take fiber from you. So your biggest competitor, you go and collaborate. Again, it helps to improve the returns for our competitor, as well as it helps to reduce the pressure on our P&L and on our balance sheet. It is very important to be having that open mind of alliances and collaboration when you are in a turbulent environment. The other aspect is about abandoning when it's not working. Sometimes these projects that we start, the investments that we start, become part and parcel of us, and it's our baby, so we don't want to let it go or kill that project. It is very important to abandon at the right time. The long tail especially, that is not going to generate significant returns or make you big. You need to let go. I always say, go big or go home. Go big or go home. So either you need to be able to go big and achieve that scale, or shut it down. Increasingly, again, it is very difficult because there's a lot of hard work, passion put into those projects. So there's a lot of resistance. We will try this way, we will wait for another 3 months, another year to take that hard call. But you need to reflect and ask, are we taking those hard decisions? Are we saying to ourselves, go big or go home? The last one is about assessing progress. This is more about going to the balcony. A simple way to remember assessing progress is going to the balcony. Here we are in the dance floor. Day in, day out, we are in the dance floor. We are caught up with our day-to-day operations and execution. But regularly you need to go to the balcony and see how are the plans helping to achieve your set goals. That reviewing of progress is very important. And that reflection cannot be done sitting in the dance floor. You have to go to that balcony. You have to look from beyond to see how your actions are leading towards that large outcome. So occasionally try and go to the balcony. It is important as leaders when you are running your organizations, but also important as individuals to reflect on your life in terms of your learning, your progress, your impact. Always it is important to reflect, go to the balcony and see how you are progressing. So overall, these are the 8 principles that I wanted to touch on. The first one is about attitude, playing to win versus playing not to lose. The need to anticipate early, constantly anticipate. If you are on the road, you are seeing traffic, you will change, you take a different route. You anticipate traffic. But when you are running a business, are you anticipating a difficult environment and are you course correcting on time? Or are you thinking that the traffic will clear, so I will still stay in the same route? In our day-to-day life, we do that. Maybe you have the privilege of Google Maps to tell you this route is going to be 10 minutes delayed. But as management accountants, you have to have that foresight to anticipate and guide the organization. Then it is important to be agile, be able to change, course correct fast, have that bias for action. Use alliances because it can spread your risk. Make sure that you have others contributing to your success. Be ready to let go, abandon, and then assess progress. These are few principles that I believe would help to navigate in a difficult, turbulent environment as you progress towards your success. So with that, I will conclude my remarks. Thank you very much for your patient listening. I'll be available for any clarifications post this session. Thank you very much.
Our appreciation to our orator for that transparent and vividly illustrated guide to managing organizations through turbulence. It's not quite a balcony, but we're going to ask you to step down to the center of the hall along with Professor Lakshman R. Vatavella as he bestows upon our Founders Day orator the gold medallion for the oration. And that is the gold medallion for the Founders Day Oration 2023. Our thanks to Mr. Supun Veerasinghe. We now have the formal installation of the CMA Governing Council for 2023 to 2025. This will take the form of the presentation of a medallion to the members of the CMA Governing Council for that period, that's 2023 to 2025, and Professor Lakshman R. Vatavella, as the founder president, will be making that presentation. So we begin, if we could have Professor Vatavella front and center once again. Thank you. We commence with the installation of Vice President for the years 2023 to 2025, Mr. H.M. Hennayaka Bandara. A warm congratulations. And now to the council members, and then to the council members elected by the members, Mr. Ruchira Pereira. Congratulations. Also council member, Mr. Puvendran Gajendra. And Mr. Asanga Vimalaratna. And now to those nominated members, Mr. Manil Jayasinghe, past president of CA Sri Lanka. Congratulations. And Senior Professor Kennedy Gunawardena, head of the Department of Accounting of the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. Congratulations. And now also to Ms. Surekha Katavala, Additional Director, Bank Supervision Department of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we present to you the CMA Governing Council for the years 2023, that's 2023 to 2025. Congratulations to all the Governing Council members. And now, Professor Vatavella, we will ask you to do the honors once again. This time we are presenting a token of the history of CMA Sri Lanka, the CMA Sri Lanka history book, which covers the years 1999 to 2022, in the interest of the nation is what it's called, and that is to recognize its founder members and those who have contributed to the development of CMA Sri Lanka. I beg your pardon. We begin with presenting it to some of the new council members. So we'd like to invite Mr. Asanga Vimalaratna to receive the book. And then Senior Professor Kennedy Gunawardena. And now to Ms. Surekha Katavala. Now with interest to Mr. Buddhipala, Mr. Nandika Buddhipala. Mr. Nanda Korea also receives the book. This representation of CMA's history is also presented to Mr. S. Jayavarman. Mr. W.S. Kiruparatnam, please, if you would. And Mr. N. Nagasinghe. Mr. Gamini Vimalasurya. And Mr. Kosala Disanayaka. The CMA history book is also presented to CMA members who have completed the CMA program of study. That's Mr. Manoj Priyanta Punchiheva. And Mr. M.M.M. Risley. Also receiving the book is the Charter President of the CMA Sri Lanka Toastmasters Club, who presents the Speechcraft program, Mr. Chandana Samaravira. And now for special recognition to those who have supported CMA Sri Lanka through the years, Mr. Dr. R.M.K. Ratnayaka, the former Secretary of the Ministry of Trade, who was responsible for undertaking the work related to the incorporation of CMA Sri Lanka. He may not be present, but we appreciate his contribution. There is also Mr. Bandula Tilakasiri, the Director General of the Department of Samurti. Mr. D.R.S. Hapuarachi, the Commissioner General of the Department of Inland Revenue. And Mr. D. Jeevanandan, the Additional Secretary to the Ministry of Trade, Commerce and Food Security. And Mr. Mahendra Amarasuriya is next in receiving the book. It is also presented as a token of recognition, an award to the late Dr. G.C.B. Vijay the first chairman of the CMA Sri Lanka Advisory Council, and it will be received by his daughter, Ms. Deepika Herath. It's also presented to Mr. Sanjay Bandara, the President of CA Sri Lanka. And Mr. Heshana Kuruppu, Vice President of CA Sri Lanka and Vice President of SAFA. Mr. G.L. Prasanna, the Acting CEO of CA Sri Lanka. And Mr. Nalin Dhammika De Silva, the President of AAT Sri Lanka. And thank you once again to all those who have contributed and supported CMA Sri Lanka. And we allow the presenters to now resume their seats with our thanks. It is time now for the President's address. And we have Professor Lakshman R. Vatavala as founder president, who is a past president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, a past president of the South Asian Federation of Accountants, and a founder signatory to the formation of SAFA in 1984. He is the founder president of AAT Sri Lanka, as well as a past president of the Organization of Professional Associations of Sri Lanka, as well as being founder president of the Institute of Chartered Professional Managers in Sri Lanka. He's also past president of the Association of Management Development Institutes of South Asia. He has also been former chairman and director general of the Board of Investment of Sri Lanka and the chairman of People's Bank. Professor Lakshman R. Vatavala also received the national honor of Sri Lanka Sikhamani in 2019 and was installed in the Hall of Fame of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka in 2013. In 2018, he was awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award by CMA Sri Lanka in recognition of the work he did and continues to do. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Lakshman R. Vatavala.
Good evening to all of you. I think I have nothing to say. I think after our Founders' Day oration that was delivered by Mr. Supun Veerasinghe, who is the CEO and MD of Dialogue, etc. Our Commissioner General of Inland Revenue, Mr. Hapu Arachi. We also have our, I think he's just gone off, I think we had the chairman of the Export Development Board, Dr. Kingsley Bernard, I think he's just gone. Our Vice President, Mr. Hennayaka Bandara, our distinguished invitees, council members, members of CMA Sri Lanka, ladies and gentlemen. Today is indeed a day we are looking at our past because it's the Founders' Day, and let me thank all of you for your kind presence. I must especially say a word of thanks to Ms. Deepika Herath, because you know, when we started the CMA Sri Lanka, it was not an easy thing. A lot of people were protesting, and the late Dr. G.C.B. Vijay Singh, as you know, he was a past president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants. I also had a very close association with him. When he was president, I was his vice president. And he just told me, Lakshman, don't worry. You are a person who can make things happen. Please go ahead. I think those were the words of encouragement of your dad. I really appreciate. He was a real gentleman who said the right thing. And we can see that today, the CMA Sri Lanka, because I remember when I went to the Minister of Trade, the Honorable Kingsley Wickramaratne, I told him, sir, you have no way to give us any money, but you kindly give me a letter addressed to the High Commission of Canada asking them to support us. Because at that time I had forged a relationship with CMA Canada, and they were prepared to help us. Sometimes you might be wondering as to why I would have thought of linking up with CMA Canada, but we had a very strong party in Sri Lanka. It was the UK body, the CMA. I myself a member of that body. I'm sure Mr. Supun is also a member, and many others. And of course, at the time that I did the exam, they were the Institute of Cost and Works Accountants, ICWA. But thereafter they progressed, and finally now they are Chartered Management Accountants. So you can see that the management accounting profession is a growing field. And I was able to link up with Canada because I thought that if we did it maybe as a local body, as normally all of you would like to be associated with foreign people. Yes, we were associated with them, and only thing is that we did not do their foreign qualification here, but we did a local qualification. That was the great thing, because we wanted to make it a national body. We wanted to make it affordable to the local people in Sri Lanka, and also to give them a management accounting qualification, which most of the people, maybe the people who could afford, maybe I said that I did it, maybe I have been able to afford, but there are many more who were not able to afford it. So that was really the beginning. And when I went to see at that time it was the Canadian International Development Agency, one question they asked me, of course they wanted all details, and the final thing was, do you think that this will be a sustainable organization? Sustainability. Of course, fortunately for me, I had, of course I could tell them I had given my figures, but in addition to that, I told them that I started the Association of Accounting Technicians of Sri Lanka without a single cent. Today you can see the success of it, where we were able to make it a successful organization. A lot of them don't know, so maybe we have written the history of CMA, so I think the president of AAT is here. He may able to write the history, but he must ask the right people to tell them what the history was. So this was really because I was the president of the Chartered Accountants, and I just want to tell you that at that time, the ADB wanted to maybe give the money to the government to start an organization, but I was able to convince, I think Mr. Gamini Fonseca is here. He was one of our founder council members, Mr. Gamini Fonseca, and of course, the chartered accountant said, they gave me the memorandum and articles and said, if you want, you can go and do anything with it. But they gave me a council. Mr. Gamini Fonseca was one. Mr. Pasupati, now he is in the UK. Mr. Dr. Aryadasa. Before that, of course, Mr. Dalan Tharmaratnam. So all were really people who said that we must do this. We must get this started. Then I think the OPA president is here. Has he gone? No, she is here, yeah. You may not know, but you were also really a party that helped to maybe start the AAT at the initial stages, because at that time I was also part of the OPA. Mr. Manoharan, he's a chartered accountant, a very good friend of mine, past president of the OPA. At that time we had formed what was called the OPA, the overseas chapter, not overseas chapter. It was really for setting up of international projects. It was done with the EDB support, and they had an office. So he told me, don't worry, I'll give you a small room. So that was how we started, So he gave us the room, and then we were able to start. And that sustainability was there at that time, because even the AAT, we were not frightened to start, because we knew that it will be a sustainable organization. Then what we did, we prepared the syllabus. I think Mr. Aridasa, Mr. Gamini Fonseca is here. They all put their heads together, and then we had to put only one advertisement calling for students to register. And you may be surprised, 1,500 students registered. So that's because we were a non-profit making, but a free-living organization. So that helped us to bring the money, and thereafter, of course, all the buildings, everything, that was all our own sweat, all our hard work we put in, and these things came in. You see, this is really something which the government started in 1959. When the Institute of Chartered Accountants was formed, at that time they had a big, maybe a commission or a report, L.M. De Silva report, and they said that this could be done, but it's not going to be controlled by the government. It's not going to be government funded, but we will support you. We will have a separate act. And what did they say? You are non-profit making, we will not tax you, but you have to be sustainable. You have to, maybe we will give you the initial support. I think they gave the land at Longdon Place, maybe the building at the initial stages, but thereafter we were fee living. We had to charge a small fee from the students, and then that enabled us to go. Because I am telling this because today the government is broke. They have no money. So this is something they started in 1959. But they really forgot about that. After that, say, Okkoma Nikang. All free, all free. Ultimately, this is the situation of our country. But if they followed the principle of setting up the chartered accountants, Mr. Manyaja Singh is also here, past president, and some of the others who are maybe leading members of the chartered body. I think the vice president is here. But this is something that we must tell the government, You have made a success of the chartered accountants, a non-profit making institution, you charge a fee, and you are able to carry on. You see, people in this country are prepared to pay for education. Although there are some people who protest, and do various things. If you go to the passport office, 50% of those people who are like in that queue are people who want to go overseas. Why? Because of the problems here in this country. So I think this is something that they may now put it into action. I think if they give the autonomy to all the universities, I think we have Senior Professor Kennedy Gunawanda here, they will tell how these can be run, how these can be run profitably, how they can really serve this country. So we now have to really think in a new way. Because what our orator, Mr. Supun mentioned about the strategy, how the dialogue has been running. I think the Director General of the BOI is also here, because actually it was in 1991. I was then the chairman of the Greater Colombo Economic Commission. Later we transferred me to the Board of Investment because we want to take out the projects to that. At that time, before, when it was GCEC, we were only promoting export industries. Only exports were done. No infrastructure, no telecommunication, nothing. But there we started. So that was really the start. I remember even signing the agreements for these projects, all these telecommunication projects. And you can see the transformation that took place in this country. As a result of what Dialogue has done, you see everyone has a phone in their hand. Those days you had to go to the MP and get a letter to get a phone. I know that the SLT officials are also here, but that was the situation. But that was really changed as a result of this massive drive on the mobile phones that was started. I remember the first mobile phone, it was a big one, not the small ones that you have. But I remember Singtel, that was approved by the BOI, they are coming and showing me their phone. So that's the type of investment that should be made in this country to revolutionize the whole thing, to make it available to everyone. And also it should benefit the country, the people. Even the e-education can be done using these phones. So I really appreciate, because I think also, I don't know, those days we were looking for foreign investment, it was not very easy to come, And at one time, the biggest investor, of course, Dialogue was the local one, but they, as he said, they were borrowing in dollars. So we had to call it foreign direct investment, and the biggest investor for the BOI was Dialogue, because they were coming in very large amounts of using the foreign exchange. So you can see that at that time, how we utilized all these things, how it benefited the country. So I think a drastic change has taken place. Now what Mr. Supun mentioned today is something that is really, we are all, I think, from the private sector, but I think our Commissioner General was here, I think Chairman EDB, he is also from the private sector, but you can see as to how transformation can take place in the private sector. But unfortunately, this transformation is not that easy in the public sector. So that's a major problem that we are having. I know the big tasks that are being given to the Commissioner General of Indian Revenue to increase and charge taxes. Even our CMA name was also recently gazetted. The chartered accountants, the certified management accountants, that all of them must now pay taxes. I think all those who are employed are paying taxes. Not that they are not paying taxes, but there may be some who are doing their own business who may not be doing that. So I don't know whether they can gazette all the companies registered with the register of companies. If they gazette all those people, then I think they can get a bigger income, because a lot of them are not maybe paying, or we don't know, but actually if you bring them also into the list, I am just suggesting to the Commissioner General, the big business people, of course the quoted companies, they have to pay their taxes, otherwise they can't survive, but there are so many who are not. Actually the listed companies are only 250 or 300. All the others are unlisted companies. So say they have 30, 40,000 companies. So if you gazette all those, or if you tell that all companies that are registered with the register of companies, then have to pay tax, then I suppose it may not be too difficult. But my worry is, you see, we are a cost and management accounting institution. That is, we are really worried about the cost. Now government has increased its revenue. Then government must cut down its expenditure also, no? If government is going to increase revenue, if you are going to increase your expenditure, how are you going to have a surplus? You ask any of these gentlemen who are here, who are leading companies, can you ever run with a deficit? Who is the one who is going to give you the money? In the case of the government, they have borrowed. Now you see, you can see, because they have borrowed, the whole country is in problem. We have all become debtors. We have all become beggars. That is what has happened. You see, we can't even go out and face our friends outside because of this current situation that we are in. So I think this lecture that was done, we have recorded it. I think we will make it available free to all the public servants for them to listen how they can transform themselves. You see, 1.6 million public servants. Those days we had what is called the civil service. The best people in this country. Now these are the mistakes that are made by this country. The civil service, you transferred, of course, to maybe the public service, but who took the power? The public service power was taken over by the politicians. So how do you run a country? So these are the basic problems that have been done. In education, they did the same thing. Because you see, you must compare ourselves with India, our neighboring country. They have a parliament, lower parliament, they had the Senate. Our people did away with that. They are still running with the same constitution, our people changed the constitution. Then the public service, again did away with the public service. So these are, then English language, that also they did away with. Now see what damage that has done to this country. So actually the people, it is not the wishes of the people. It is the wishes of some few people who were brought. So what we are saying is, in 48, when the British handed over Sri Lanka, they should have said, you should be a sustainable country. Same question that was asked when we are going to set up a project. But did that happen? No. So I think these are all mistakes that are done. All the constitutions have been changed for the benefit of the politicians, not the people of this country. Now, even as accountants, we are members of the International Federation of Accountants. What do they say? You are working for the public interest. I am not a politician, but we have to work for the public interest. Now, recently, our Cost and Management Accounting Institution, we have put out what is called the societal cost. Societal cost is what you know, is the cost that is paid by the society. I can just take one example. If you take the power sector, the price was increased in order that they can become profitable. Okay, that they have done so that they could get the loan from the international IMF. But you know that, can you pass over inefficiencies, the operational inefficiency of cost, and all the expenditure, maybe excess staff, can the society pay all those costs? So that is the wrong thing. So IMF must know that how they can tell that you can increase the price, but you have to make them efficient, you have to make them productive, and ensure that everyone is working in that. That's why cost accounting is required. Now you see, you must make cost accounting records. Does any of these institutions have that? Now Mr. Jivananda is here, Additional Secretary on the Ministry of Trade. All of a sudden we find headlines, Minister reduces the price by 14% or 15%. That is not the case. You must have a cost record, and then that you can show it to the authority and say, okay, this is the price. Even if in the transport sector, whatever sector, no one is having any records. You see, in India, they are very strict. By legislation, they have said you must maintain cost records. If you take the power sector, every power plant, they will have to maintain the cost records. That will give all the details of the costs that they have incurred. Then they have to do a cost audit to see whether what they have done is right. Now, these are the things that this country has to do if we are really going to do it. We can't just say, of course, depreciation was there, then the price went down. Now they say they reduced the currency has now appreciated. Where is the price reduction? But to get the price reduction, you must have a cost record. Without a record, so government must gazette that. Every institution must maintain cost records. And then either they have to be audited by someone to ensure that the cost is correct. So these is actually what Mr. Supun mentioned in the strategic plan, strategic action. Now you see, one thing I will tell you now, you see, they were borrowing in US dollars. You see, they were running their business very well. But if the government doesn't manage themselves properly, see what will happen. 30 million or billion, I don't know. 30 billion. 30 billion loss. So who is responsible for that loss? Are they responsible? No. From outside, these losses happen. So that's why I think we really have to take private sector might be the best. You have your quoted companies. Now we have even what is called the CMA Excellence in Integrated Reporting Awards. It's not only the profit. We take what is called value creation. What I would like to tell the government is, every ministry, you find out what is the value they are creating for the input they are putting. What is the value they are creating? If I ask the Commissioner General of Inland Revenue value creation, he will say, this is the amount of taxes I collect. If that is below par, then that's a different thing. But if it is more, then how many other ministries, all these monies that are going, what is the value they are creating? If there is no value, then what is the purpose? You are looking at public interest. So that's why this cost and management accounting is very essential. And we formed it, and we are, although we have now set up what is called the Cost and Management Accounting Standards Board, and we are trying to work out all this. But these are simple solutions which have to be done. For us to be successful, we need the support of the government to implement these things. I can just tell you that even cabinet decisions are not carried out in this country. We had a cabinet decision in 2014 that our qualification should be included for recruitment of government accountants. You know how long it took? It took 7 years for me, after chasing behind all these people, to get it included in the government gazette. So you can see, with that sort of thing, even politicians are not able to do anything, because the public service has to be able to carry this out. Because you see, one of the reasons I see that, you must have many accountants, chartered accountants, management accountants, at the lower grade accounting technicians. Now all these three bodies are there in Sri Lanka, They are recognized by the International Federation of Accountants, the global body for the accounting profession. But government is not recognizing. Government is not recruiting them. So what has happened? You see, all our money has to be controlled. Every department must have a financial director. Every place must have qualified accountants. But are they having that? You ask for the accounts are not prepared. So I think these are not very, very big things have to be done. These are very simple things. Like the gazette you put to collect the taxes, you gazette all these things. You give the accounts by this date. If you don't give, then finish. But if you have your friends who are managing those, then you can't do that, no. You must have professional people. Our country has come to a stage that we have to tell this. Because if we don't tell this, who else is going to tell? You see, at this stage, these have to be corrected. That is why I am telling this, because today we have listened to a very excellent oration. But these now have to be put into action, no? So I think time has come that we don't have to protest on the roads, but we have to put these ideas into action. And see, Because I am just saying, because Commissioner General is also here, he might be able to help us in this. I don't know whether any others are there, but I must thank him for coming, because yesterday also I met him and he said that he will come. I really appreciate your presence. But the thing is, the government is not doing anything. Now, I can see the Director General of the BOI. Now, you know that it is because of the BOI that this country is earning foreign exchange. Do you know that how we did the 200 garment factory? You were there. You see, if we did not set up the 200 garment factory, this government would have not had any foreign exchange. In 1991, I think DG Ms. Renuka Virakon is there. She has come, I think, to listen to Mr. Supun's speech, but not my speech, what I am saying. But I am telling you, it was really the BOI that, you see, we went throughout the country. Today they are talking of one-stop shop. At that time, we were able to operate. If they want to know how to operate one-stop shop, if they come and ask me, I'll tell them how it has to be done. You see, without authority, you can't do no. Now, today in this country, no accountability. No. Even if you smuggle gold or anything, no accountability. Then they say government servant has not done the proper job. You have not done the proper valuation. Why should you act on others? That is correct. Government servants have to take this into action, If they are going to do everything what the politicians say, this country is already ruined, it will get further ruined. So that's what I say, cost and management accounting is very, actually when you say accounting, the management part is very important. There is no management. If there is no management, we are all really sunk in this whole thing. Management in accounting will really enable us to do, because I am telling this because I also ran corporations. I sacrificed my life, 20 years of good part of my life sacrificed to build the private sector and the government sector. Ultimately, see what has happened. That's why I am hurt. We sacrificed to build, but certain people after that have destroyed this whole nation. So I think we need to take corrective action. We have very senior people. Mr. Mahendra Amarsuri is here. He will know. He has run banks. He has run big major companies. They will know how they have run those, So that's why, in fact, once we were there, I think he should remember, we were asked to, I think the minister at that time said, he invited some private sector people and public sector people, and we were supposed to monitor all these corporations, their projects. Because ultimately what we found was the final person who was responsible for the whole thing, for not giving the money and delaying everything, was the finance ministry. But all the other ministries, we found that they were able to do and gave everything, and everything improved day by day. So this sort of monitoring is not there now. Monitoring has to be done, and that's, I think, something that we learn in accounting. But accountability is also essential. Of course, they talk of governance, all these things. So anyway, let me thank everyone, because this body has been formed. I must thank all our council members, Mr. Hennayaka Bandara, because you see, we also came to the limelight in the South Asian region, where we had the presidency of the South Asian Federation, and we nominated Mr. Hennayaka Bandara. So last year, he was there. So we are gradually coming up, and we are trying to do a service to everyone. So I'm indeed thankful to Mr. Supun Veerasinghe, because he accepted our invitation. He is not a person who will want to throw his weight, but he really is one of the biggest companies in this country. As I told you, everyone will have a mobile phone, so always you speak of dialogue. But it's not only in Colombo, in the rural areas, all areas, they really revolutionize the telephone industry in this country. So that's something, and similarly, you will have to think of the other industries, whether they can do the same thing. If you privatize, and if you find that the price is going to be higher than what the government is going to do, then you are going to run into a problem. Maybe the electricity sector, because you see, actually I have done some work on this, because on the costing side, the private producers who are giving power to the electricity board, everyone is making profit. No one is making a loss. But the man who makes a loss is the Ceylon Electricity Board. But then, You see, this is what I'm saying. So if you privatize and if you look at that policy, all of you are going to get sunk, We will destroy the whole process, Because, you see, I remember when I was chairman of the People's Bank, the biggest profit-making institution was the Ceylon Electricity Board. They had the largest deposits. You know why? The raw material was water. They got it free. Then what happened? They went to fuel, and then only all this jugglery started. The high prices they were paying. So today, whatever high prices they are paying, they are subsidizing from the hydropower, 2 rupees and 50 cents. Whereas coal is some 950, the fuel is maybe 39.40 depending on the fuel price. So that's how things are working. If we have more rain, we will have more hydropower. So we are on luck by chance. That is how we are working. So that's how people really don't understand this. They are talking of privatization, everything. But ultimately, it should benefit. It should be in the public interest, not into the private interest, but public interest. So that's what the cost and management accounting profession is doing. And today this talk that was given is really of great essence of how to plan both short term and long term, the strategic area and the operational area. So I think that was of great importance to all of us, but I think we have to now ensure that it will go to the areas that it is required. So thank you very much everyone for your kind participation. We are having some refreshments after this function, so I do hope that we can meet with you and then have a little more conversation. I'm sure Mr. Supun was saying that he would like to meet with everyone to find out the ideas and how it could be done. But I should say that this oration that we have been doing is something that has really helped us. We did not get a politician to come and speak, but we got someone that would give essence to the people of this country, essence to the private sector, essence to the public sector. I think that's the way that we need to think, and if we think in that direction, I'm sure Sri Lanka would be able to overcome all these problems, and then we will all be able to go into prosperity. Thank you, and all the very best to you.
Thank you, Professor Vatavella, for those insights into the growth of CMA Sri Lanka and its development, and into the importance of creating value, whether as an organization or as a nation. As you've heard, there were many involved in the creation of value for not only this event, but for CMA Sri Lanka as a whole. And sharing our appreciation in the vote of thanks is Mr. Ruchira Pereira, Council Member for CMA. He's a fellow member of CMA Sri Lanka and an associate member of CMA UK. He has served in the CMA Governing Council from 2013 and is chairman of the Members and Student Affairs Committee as well. He's also technical advisor to the president of CMA Sri Lanka on the SAFA board. He's the head of finance for the higher education sector of Lyceum Global Holdings as well. Mr. Ruchira Pereira with the vote of thanks.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished invitees, dear colleagues. I feel honored and privileged to stand before you as a council member of CMA Sri Lanka, which was founded by our founders 24 years ago. It is said that for any great work to happen, there has to be a right foundation. It is the foundation on which we build our platform. Therefore, it is no wonder that the Foundation Day is celebrated in style, and at CMA, we take this opportunity to look at wonderful achievements of our founders. I think Professor Vatavella has mentioned what they had gone through 24 years back in setting up this institute dedicated for management accounting. Not only they had the vision at that time, but they also were able to get the necessary funding and other support to gain recognition and reputation for the institute over the years. So Professor Vatavella, with so much of love and respect, and also for the founders, I express my gratitude for all our founders for taking this institute to where it is standing today. Ms. Supun Veerasinghe, our keynote speaker today, Director, Group Chief Executive Officer of Dialogue Ex-Theatre, thank you very much, sir, for being here with us and for the excellent presentation that you have made. As Professor Vatavella has mentioned, I think we could record your presentation and we could distribute it for all participants here today and also for public servants. It was an excellent presentation, and I really admire for highlighting the key message in your presentation where you have highlighted that uncertainties are opportunities. Thank you very much for that great message. Mr. Hennaka Bandara, thank you very much for your opening remarks, for setting tone for the Founders' Day ceremony, and for welcoming the audience. I would also like to thank my fellow council members who were supportive of this event right from the word go. They were fully supportive and they took it to their hands to invite certain members. So I must thank them and also the staff of CMA for arranging this excellent Founders' Day ceremony. I should thank Ms. Shanti Maheshwaran and also CEO of CMA Sri Lanka for arranging this wonderful ceremony today, because without their support, we would not be having this Founders' Day oration as we have planned beautifully. So last but not least, let me thank the management of BMICH who were supportive and who have arranged this wonderful auditorium, which is an excellent place to have a Founders' Day oration, and for supporting the CMA staff to get it organized. Last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for accepting our invitation and for gracing the occasion. I know most of the invitees are our friends. We took it to our hands at sometimes to make personal invitations. So thank you very much for accepting our invitations and for gracing this occasion. Last but not least, let me say, since it is a Founders' Day, it is an occasion where past, present, and the future of the institute come together, and we give a pledge to uplift the institute to the greatest possible heights and dimensions. So in this regard, we seek the blessings of our founders and well-wishers that we will succeed in this journey. Once again, I thank all who are here today, and as Professor Watawal has mentioned, before we wind up, I would invite you for the refreshments and for the networking that will follow after the session. Thank you very much.
So you've already received the calls to action, and of course, all of those calls to action require some fortification of mind and body. So as you process, discuss, and prepare your plans of action, we invite you to partake in the refreshments that are laid out for you downstairs at the BMICH Cinema Lounge. So enjoy and have a great evening. Thank you.